Hi everyone, like the name, like the picture says up there, my name is Tola, and I'm really excited to moderate this panel because of how circularity shows up in my life, right? So my wardrobe's on rotation, my transportation's on demand, and the recycle bin hates to see me coming. And like in general, it's like my life motto is sharing is caring, but that is definitely not all about like what circularity is all about. And so we're going to hear from two experts that can give us the real down low on what circularity means. And so, Jenelle, Andrew, if you could break it down for a really smart friend at Central Perk, maybe his name is Joey or something, what is circularity beyond me looking fabulous and recycling? All right,
Sure. Is this working? Yes?
it's on.
I don't know what button's on. Okay. Hi, all. My name is Jenelle. I lead circularity for Trane Technologies. Get into our business in a second, but just to answer Tola's question on what circularity really means, it's a really complex word. It seems very simple, but to be honest, it's incredibly complex. I think what's most essential is to start with what the opposite of circularity is, which is linear. A linear economy basically means taking a resource from the earth. Manufacturer or business is creating and making something. A consumer then is using that product, that material. That's great. And then once the use stage kind of is completed, that product typically gets dumped, right? It goes straight to landfill. So recycling might be the first terminology that you might associate circularity with, but there's much, much more than that. So circular economy is really an economic system. It's somewhere you can create value through a product or materials throughout the entire life cycle. How can you extend the life of these products? How can you use the products on repeat? How can you ensure that throughout the entire cycle, you're minimizing waste? If you guys are familiar, there's a stat in the Circular Gap report that came out earlier this year that says about 6.9% of annual consumption is recycled or secondary. That is small. Of 100 billion tons of materials that's consumed on an annual basis, only 6.9% is actually recycled or reused.
All right, so I'm going to stop you
Yes,
there because you're
please.
giving us a whole lot, and one of them is like, we need to digest
It's
this.
a lot. I told
Okay,
you.
okay. Andrew, is there anything that she shared about circularity, just like baseline for us to jump in that you think everyone else needs to know about?
I don't disagree with anything that Jenelle said. I think I would just add one other piece in terms of the consumption side. When we think about circularity, one of the foundations of circularity is the notion that you can actually have a shared economy versus a individual ownership economy. And so, of course, at Lime, if folks don't know, we operate e-scooters, e-bikes that are shared. And so the notion is that we just don't all need to own every little thing that we use day in, day out, and that can apply to transportation as well.
So that's the line right there.
That there is an example of some Lime right there. And just as an example of why that really is so important, the UN projects that there'll be an additional 2.8 billion people in cities by 2050. That's a huge amount of population growth in cities. We have to design cities in a sustainable way, which also means that we don't all need to own every little thing. So that's sort of the foundation of how we think about circularity. And then, of course, we think about it within our businesses, I'm sure, which we can talk about.
Okay, and you stole my next question. So I'm just going to go back to Jenelle and say, tell me how this lives for you at Trane on your everyday.
Yeah, so Trane Technologies, we are a global climate innovator. We build heating and cooling systems for all types of buildings. Commercial buildings we perhaps are sitting in today might have a Trane system, all the way down to residential spaces, so possibly your home might have a heating system or cooling system there. We also have on-road transportation refrigeration systems, so think about the trailers and trucks that drive produce and medicine across the states or globally. We provide the products that can cool those systems as well. We see circularity in kind of three facets. The first is design, I think is really critical. So 80% of a product's emissions has the potential impact to be reduced by means of thinking about upstream emissions and focusing on design from day one. And so we have tools and methodologies internally that focus on designing our systems for circularity, and we require our product engineers, our product managers to embed this across the entire every new product that's developed as a part of our business. The second kind of chapter I would say that circularity plays a role in our business is our operations. So how, when we're actually building our products, those that you see here on the screen, How do we ensure that we're doing that in the most effective way? What type of resources are we putting into those products? And then beyond that, how are we managing the scrap that's generated from these very robust kind of manufacturing processes? So in a closed loop fashion is very, very important. And then the final life cycle stage is end of life. So at the end of life, obviously these chillers, they could take up half the size of this room perhaps in some cases. They're huge. Obviously not all of them, but many of them. And so how do you disassemble and dismantle and recover the core components? How do you remanufacture certain systems and components to get the highest, best value of those products? And we have service teams and organizational groups who focus on that.
Awesome. So Andrew, I'm going to come back to you because we need to show Lime a little bit of love. And if you don't mind clicking back. So obviously there's the front end, what we all see, what we jump on, what does circularity look like behind the scenes or in the operations? And because it's consumers, yes, but it's also cities that you work with.
Yeah, I mean, it's not enough for us to say we offer a shared product, we're part of the shared economy, so it's done. Our sustainability work is over. So our goal is to be running the most sustainable business possible. And one thing we also realized was that if we could not be a profitable business, we wouldn't have the long-term impact, the sustainability impact that we wanted to have. And so we really had to look at the full life cycle of our vehicles to figure out, all right, how do we get these vehicles to last longer? How do we make them more repairable? So the folks in the warehouse can actually repair broken vehicles, swap out parts. And frankly, when we started the business in 2017, that wasn't high on our list, right? It was deployment, it was getting into cities, it was making sure that riders loved us. And so certain things that we did, just to give some specific examples, we had the battery housed within the top tube that you see on the scooter. It made it impossible to get that battery out safely to be able to replace it if there was a broken battery. So we've redesigned to have a swappable battery so you can actually swap a fully charged battery in the street, diminishing or cutting the number of trips that need to go out to charge the vehicle in half, and also making it much easier to repair the vehicle if there's something wrong with the battery. You just throw in a new battery and go on your way, or fix the vehicle and the battery can be used somewhere else. So we really think about it from the beginning to end of our life cycle. And we've also done things in addition to repair and reuse within our facilities. Sorry, thank you, Michelle. We also have engaged with different partnerships to think about second life and continuous life of our products. So if it leaves our facility where we can't repair and refurbish in our warehouses, we have partnered with companies like Redwood Materials to take the rare earth materials within batteries and get that material re-injected back into the e-mobility supply chain. Another example is with e-motors. We've worked with cyclic materials to extract rare earth magnets from those e-motors and get those back into the e-mobility supply chain. So,
and are they coming to you guys to do that, or you're the ones going out and saying, hey, circularity works? Like
a little bit of both. I think we know that they're out there and they offer a great service, and we're also looking for that service. So,
and Jenelle, on your end, like who's demanding it? Is it homeowners? Is it data centers? Like who's coming to? Who really wants this?
Probably more on the data center side and the kind of the end user customer side, I would say. There's a couple spaces that in particular that I think we hear a lot of requests on, especially in EMEA. So EMEA policy is much more progressive than here in the United States. I think that's probably typical for many sustainability topics. Unfortunate sometimes, yes, but we can learn a lot from them, which is fantastic.
Climate change is a hoax, it's like, guys, it's real.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of things that comes to mind on what we hear a lot in customer demand is, one is remanufacturing. Remanufacturing basically means that you're taking a core component of your system, and in our case, the heart of our system is our compressors. It's like the heart of a person, right? That flows blood through your system. This flows refrigerant through the chiller and basically helps to cool a space, right? In order for us to remanufacture this core component, we basically have to take apart that core. So similar to what Lime does, is taking apart pieces of their module, we're able to do that as well. We take apart the compressor, send it to a remanufacturing plant or to a partner who's able to have the resources and skilled labor to do that. We pull it down back, to its parts of an individual bolt, right? Clean every single component of that and put it back together, repair it if necessary. And we have a cheaper system for our customers. So instead of buying a new compressor, they're now able to buy a remanufactured compressor that costs significantly less, and it services them exactly the same that they would otherwise. So that's a huge driver for us and some customer side of things that we see.
Okay, so wait, you mentioned cheap. and we all have to talk about it because you got to follow the money, right? Someone told me yesterday, companies love to look good and to do good, but they don't want to pay to do good. And so like when you guys go into your customers, whether it's cities or writers or data centers, like what's the sell that says circularity makes business sense?
I mean, from us, I think we see it as it's not an added cost to our customers. Circularity is not embedded in any type of, line item that we give to our customers. We see it a value add. So a lot of the services that we offer maintains our equipment long term to extend the life of that equipment, so they don't have to have higher OpEx expenses to buy a new system at a quicker, rate. So our chillers will last in a building perhaps for 20, 30, 40 years. And we're able to do that through our maintenance and overhaul programs. And so we provide services and offerings to our customers to create the added benefit and value for them long term. So that's probably the best example I can give there.
Yeah, I would say that our riders, circularity is just way over their heads, right? They want a vehicle that's convenient, that works, that gets them from point A to point B. Now, our city partners, they care a bit more. So they ask us about our practices, how long do vehicles last? And as I mentioned at the outset, we knew that if we didn't run a profitable business, we wouldn't exist. And part of running a profitable business has been getting vehicles to be able to be refurbished and last much longer on the streets. I think where it comes sort of rubber meets the road for us is often these things mean a good business decision. So working with Cyclic, working with Redwood, they're extracting a higher value material from us, and thus we spend less or actually gain more in a return for the end-of-life vehicles when we can't repair them ourselves. So in many ways, there's a win-win where there's an economy that's working, where they have a service, we have a product, and they are taking the highest and best use for that product.
I mean, I just have to say, like, looking at my Uber to get here, I was like, look, I wish there was a Lime in New York because those prices are crazy. So I kind of expect you to kind of touch on the consumer side too.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing in terms of the shared economy. You can actually go into the Uber app and see that a Lime is available in markets where we operate. And you'll see the time, the dollars or the pounds, depending where you are, or euros, et cetera. And it is shocking how much more efficient it is and how much less it costs. And we've got to be able to find ways to build a more sustainable city of the future. And I think part of that is never needs to own everything.
And it's not susceptible to like random city strikes. So that's a good shout too. Okay, we have about 2 minutes and they're showing the card. So what's next? Like what excites you about momentum for circularity? Is it the partnerships on the horizon? Is it tech? What in the next 6 to 12 months? Like what?
Want to go first or should I go? I would say scale. We have now served over 850 million rides. We've surpassed 1 billion kilometers ridden, and I feel like we're just getting started. And so if we can figure out a way to continue to scale to new markets, expand within markets that we already operate, we can provide a service that adds a sustainability option that people love.
Amazing.
I'll answer this twofold. Yeah, I think 2 things excite me more so about the general circularity space. Obviously, ways that we're also integrating it within our own organization. The first is kind of standardization, which seems really boring, right? But data is the driver behind a lot of stuff. And as much as we don't want to admit, we have to use data to the best of our ability to kind of build business change and build impact, right? So there's different standards that exist in the circularity space today, but it's not structured like SBTI perhaps, right? There aren't those kind of established kind of frameworks that exist in circularity. And so, but they're becoming more commonplace. Some things like CTI, circular transition indicators. ISO has a new standard that came out earlier this year. The GCP, which is the Global Circularity Protocol. These are great standards that can help organizations like ourselves set KPIs and targets. So we're starting to measure our results internally.
So you know what good looks like.
Exactly. What does good look like? So we're starting to set those KPIs. Yeah. And the last thing, kind of totally a little bit different, but end-of-life recovery is a big kind of piece of our business, kind of that challenge that we haven't yet fully functioned and figured out. But there's automated disassembly, there's AI, there's different types of technology and tools that are starting to exist that can make disassembly a lot more cost effective, a lot less labor intensive. And I think we're going to need a lot more of those technologies in the recycling space in order to make this a reality in the future.
Amazing. All right. So we actually have 1 more minute. I was going to say we're at time. Any last words? Okay, guys, be more
I could say a lot
circular.
more, I could say a lot more words, but I don't know that I have the time for it.
Okay, well, then we are at time. I hope you learned so much more about circularity besides how to look fabulous and how to recycle. And if you need more insights, these two will be here for those questions. Thank you so much to Michelle and the team and our host, Deborah Vars, and you guys enjoy the rest of the summit.
Thank you.